Welcome to Harry Lorraine's Memory Power, Secrets to Remembering Numbers. Now, here's your host, Harry Lorraine.
Yes, I'm Harry Lorraine, and by the time I'm through with you, you'll remember it, and so much more, easily, because you already have a good memory. Sure you do. You want to prove it to yourself? Try to forget something you already know. You see what I mean? That's impossible. The more you try to forget it, the better you're going to remember it. There are only two kinds of memory, only two kinds. There is a trained memory, and there is an untrained memory. You were born with the same capacity for memory as I was, exactly the same, except my memory is trained. Yours isn't. Even if you think you have a great memory, or a fantastic memory, or a good memory, I will give you a memory you never dreamed possible, and you're going to have fun as you learn and as you do. I want you to get out of that thinking rut that most of us spend our lives in. I'm going to teach you to think just a little differently, but it works. But now let's talk about numbers. Numbers, they're geometrical. They're not even geometrical. They're designs. They're simply designs. They're squiggles. What does a number mean to you and me? It's a concept. What does a 5 mean except that it's one lower than 6 or one higher than 4? There's no way to picture numbers. I'm saying that because most people don't know how to picture numbers. I do. My students do. Anybody that reads my books do know how to do it. So let me show you how simple it really is. Some of you were given some papers when you came in to the room today, and one of those pages is white, and if you look through them and find the one that has the populations of all the United States and cities, their capital cities and their populations. Now, I just told you what's on that page. There are 50 of them. They're numbered from 1 to 50. They are in almost alphabetical order. There are a couple that are out of sync, like Hawaii and Alaska, but generally speaking, they're in alphabetical order. If you call anything on that page, that is the number from 1 to 50, the state itself, the capital city, or the population backwards or forwards, I will attempt to give you the rest of the information. Let's do it by a show of hands, because if you shout them out at me, obviously, I can't really hear them. So if you raise your hand, I'll point to you. You ask your question, I'll try to answer it. Mr. Chorney. No, you don't have to stand, just ask your question.
I'm going to give you the population in reverse.
Okay, why don't you give me just the last 3 digits?
800.
800, the rest is 317. Is that the one you're looking at, Mr. Enoch? Yeah, Mr. Enoch, that's Chorney backwards. I figure if you talk that way, perhaps you understand. In any case, let me give you the rest of that information. You're looking at number 10, the 10th state. Idaho is the state, and the capital is Boise. Have we got that right? Good. Anybody, just, yeah, no. Take a look at this. And if you can't see it too clearly, I hope you can, I'll read it for you. The sentence, the phrase is, a beautiful naked blonde jumps up and down. A beautiful naked blonde jumps up and down. The number is 9185-2719-5216-3909-2112. I don't want you to put your remote control or your tape on pause and stare at this for a half hour. No. I just wanted you to take one look at it, the phrase and the number. Please do that. Yes, Mr. Lynch.
The population is 1,059,273.
Utah, Salt Lake City is the capital. Did I get that right? It's the 42nd state listed there. You really want to try to stump me? Somebody give me the center 3 digits. That means between the commas, backwards, all right, if you like.
861.
Are those the 3 center digits going backwards?
Yes.
To the right of that, you got a 164. To the left, you got a 7. That's New Jersey, the capital is Trenton, 28th state. Did I get it right, Miss Angel? Good. Yes, Mr. Gold. I'm going to teach you something I call the phonetic alphabet. Now, don't let that scare you. I don't know what phonetic means any more than you do, except that it has to do with sounds. I have been very fortunate insofar as that there are only 10 digits in our numerical system from 1 to 0, and there are only 10 main basic consonant sounds. 10 main basic consonant sounds. In other words, it evens up. That's why I was lucky, 10 and 10. All I've done is matched a digit to a sound, but let me tell you why there are only 10. And I don't want to get technical here. If you're a speech major, you know there are more. I'm talking about the basics. Look, a t and d are the same basic consonant sound because your vocal apparatus is in the same position, same situations in order to form those two sounds. They're the same sound. T, duh. The tip of your tongue hits the inside of your upper teeth in exactly the same way to form those two sounds. Even though they look different, one is softer than the other, they are really the same consonant sound. So is f, v, and ph, obviously. The v is a little softer, but your lower teeth hit the inside of your upper lip exactly the same way to say f as they do to say v. Same consonant sound. What else? Look, the s sound, the hissing sound, z, soft c is in scent. Same sound, all the hissing sounds. Let's see, the p and b, the pursed-lipped or blowing sounds, same sounds. One is harder than the other, but basically they're the same sounds. The j, that's j, or sh, or ch, or soft g. I know I'm writing at an angle, and I hope you can see that. Really isn't very important because I'm saying them for you anyway. Are all really the same sounds. The j, your tongue curls exactly the same way to hit your lower inside of your lower teeth. When you say ch, or sh, or j as in giant, that's a soft G. And while I'm talking about soft, hard G as in go or great, and the K or hard C as in coat, or all the back of the throat, K or G sounds are all the same. Okay, there are only 10 of those. Let me show you then what my phonetic alphabet consists of. The sound for one will always be the T or D sound. And I'll give you a little memory aid for this. See, I'm not interested in rote memory. My job is to eliminate rote memory, not to give you ways of using it. So I'll give you an easy way to remember this just at first. Visualize a typewritten T. It has one downstroke, one, to remind you of one, or a T is made up of 2-digit ones. Here's a 1 perpendicularly, there's one lying on top of it horizontally. Just a silly aid only at first to help you remember that the sound for one will always be t or d. The sound for two will always be n, the sound made by our letter N. Look at that N, it has 2 downstrokes, 2, to help you remember that the sound for two will always be n. The sound for 3 is represented by our letter M. That has 3, 1, 2, 3 downstrokes, or picture a 3 on its side forms an M, or one of the large corporations in America is the 3M Corporation. Again, just a silly aid to help you only at first. That's the only time you'll need it, to help you remember that the sound for 3 will always be and vice versa. I am interested only in the sounds, incidentally, not the letters, because in the English language, sometimes letters make different sounds. It's the sound that's important, but the only way I can write that sound is with the letter. I'll explain that a little more later, a little more clearly. The sound for 4 is represented by our letter R. The only little memory aid I can give you for that is that the word for ends with that sound. Or you want to use a little imagination, look at that R. See if we get a good close-up look at that R, and use your imagination. If you're a golfer, can you see that R representing a guy about to tee off, about to drive, or a woman? And what does a golfer scream or yell before he or she hits the ball? Sure, he yells 4. There's your little memory aid to help you remember that the sound for 4 it will always be, this will never change, The sound for 5 will be ul, represented by our letter L. A little memory aid, well, the Roman numeral for 50 is L. That's a little memory aid. Doesn't help you too much if you didn't know that. Look at my hand. Make a stop sign with your own hand with your 5 fingers. 5 fingers. It looks like the letter L. It looks like an L. Just another silly aid to help you remember that the ul sound represents 5 and always will. The sound for 6, I hope you can see down here. Now, don't let this throw you, because I'm going to show you quite a few, is the j sound, the ch sound, the j sound, soft G as in gentleman, and the sh, sh sound. They are all the same sounds. I mentioned that to you before. All represent 6. A little memory aid for that. Look, a digit 6 and a capital letter J are almost mirror images. If you look at one in the mirror, it looks almost like the other one. So that's just a silly memory aid only at first to help you remember that the sound for 6 will always be the j or sh sound. The sound for 7 will always be the k sound, or hard C as in coat, or hard G as in green or go. The little memory aid I can give you for that is, well, you can form the capital letter K with two sevens. Look, here's a 7 right side up, here's one almost upside down, and it forms the letter K. So it's just a silly aid only at first to help you remember that the sound for 7 will always be K, or the K sound. The sound for 8 will always be F, or V, or PH, all the same sounds, of course. The F or V sound. Little memory aid for that. The digit 8 and the handwritten F are formed in about the same way. That is, with two loops, one above the other. If I would put a tail in the middle of that 8, it would look almost like a handwritten F. Silly aid only at first to help you remember that the sound for 8 will always be the F sound, or V. The sound for 9 will always be P or B. The pursed lips or blowing sounds, P, B. Memory aid for that is obvious. A P and a 9 are almost exact mirror images. Look at one in the mirror, you see the other. Silly aid only at first to help you remember that the sound for 9 will always be P or B. The sound for 0 will always be the Z sound, the hissing sounds, or S or C. That's the soft C, obviously, the S as in centennial or cent. The only little memory aid I can give you for that is that the word 0 begins with that sound, as does the word cipher, which means 0 begins with the soft C. If you've paid attention to my voice, if you've listened to my voice, if you've looked at my writing, you should know those now because I gave you a little memory aid for each. Let's try it. Think of the digit 1. Think of the memory aid that I gave you. What sound, and if you want to say it out loud, if nobody's in your room or if there are a few people, say it out loud so you all can hear it. You can say the letter if you like, but it's the sound I'm interested in. Right now, either way is okay. What is the sound for the digit 1? T or D, exactly. Think of 2. Think of the memory aid I gave you. What's the sound for the digit 2? Say it. Of course, represented by a letter N. How about the 3? Think of the sound. Or think of the memory aid I gave you, and what is the sound? M or of course. Think of the word or the number or the digit 4. What is the sound? Of course. I gave you a little hint there. Think of the number 5. What is the sound? Gave you a little hint there too, didn't I? L, ul. Think of 6. Now don't let this throw you because there are quite a few ways of writing it. The sound is the same. What is the sound for the digit 6? J or sh, of course. Soft G, S, H, C, H, or J. Think of 7. I gave you a memory aid to remember that the sound for 7 is what? K, K, hard C, hard G, of course. Think of 8. Think of my memory aid. What is the sound? F, of course. Think of 9. Think of the memory aid. What's the sound? P, B, P, B, of course. And finally, think of the 0. What is the sound? Z, of course, the hissing sound. S or C. Did you get all or most of them? Show of hands, because I can see you. Okay. Listen, if you don't think you know them, stop tape. Go over them again. It is very simple. It's child's play, literally. I teach this to children in 5 minutes. And if you know them from 1 to 0, you know them in any order. If you think of my memory aid at first. For example, what is the sound for 8? Think of my memory aid. What is it? F, of course. Think of my sound for 3. Think of the memory aid. Of course. What does the sound R represent? What digit? 4, of course. What does the sound N, the letter N is in Nancy, represent? What digit? 2, of course. How about the Z or S or Z sound? What digit does it represent? Say it out loud. 0, of course. Don't you see you can do it forward, backward, inside out, and pell-mell, and that's important. Once those things, that phonetic alphabet, those ideas, those concepts, only those 10, and they're simple. You did 26 when you were a little kid. I mean, very little, you did the alphabet. This is much easier. And it will be the most important thing you have ever learned in your life. Now, there is a very strong statement, and I better live up to it. It will be the most important thing you've ever learned in your life when it has to do with numbers. It will be the only way to remember numbers, just as the system that I taught you to remember names and faces is not the only, but the best way to remember names and faces. Take my word for that, because if there was a better way, I'd know it, and that's what I'd use, and that's what I would teach. So what I taught you to remember names and faces, there is no better way. Modesty has become a drag for me. I believe in truth. And there is no better way to remember numbers than I have started to teach you and that I will teach you right now, if you know this phonetic alphabet, if you at least have that general concept in mind. And I repeat, if you don't, stop tape, make sure you know those 10 sounds, practice it. Very easy way to practice. You're walking in the street and see a license number on a car. In your mind, don't do it out loud because you may be arrested and I don't want to lose you. Don't do it out loud, but in your mind, transpose the digits to sounds. You see a 1, 2, 3, say t, n, to yourself. When you see a word on a billboard, whatever the word is, transpose the sounds to digits. Now, let me talk about that for a few minutes and then we'll go into actually applying it. There are a few simple rules. Look, the vowels have no meaning. Those are our wild cards. They are the wild cards. They help us form words, as you'll see in a moment. Look, A, E, I, O, U, the vowels have no meaning. Neither do the old vowel sounds, which are now called soft consonants, I believe. The W, H, Y, easy to remember. Why? Have no meaning, because they don't really make consonant sounds. The only one that has something to do with my system is the H, because if you put that after a C, let's say, it changes the sound, doesn't it? It changes the sound, ch, that H changes it. And if I wrote this word out because, look, you have one consonant sound here, you've got one consonant sound here, you have one consonant sound here, and you have one consonant sound here. That word can only transpose to 4 digits. The ch is 6, the n is 2, the j is another 6, the s is 0. Silent letters have no meaning in my language. The word in my phonetic alphabet, the word no can only transpose to the digit 2. Only. There are no decisions to make with my systems. Once you understand them, there are no decisions. It's quite simple. That K does not make a sound here. You do not say cano. If you did say cano, then that would be 72. It's the sound the letter makes in the word that's important. You remember I told you that before. The sound the letter makes, that's important. The word climb transposes to 753. K-O-M. Not 7539, because you do not say climb. Just as you do not say bomb. You do not pronounce the last B. That's 93. That's all it can be. There are no decisions to make with my systems. Double letters represent only 1 digit. Look, the word pillow can only break down to 9-5. The rest of vowels, the double L, is meaningless. You know why? You don't say pillow. You say pillow. I don't care if there were 3 L's there, it's still a 5. It makes 1 ul sound. Here's a good test for you. The word is attention. What does that break down to? You want to make it kind of a test? You want to stop tape, figure it out, and then come back and I'll give you the answer. Be very careful of the sounds. Now, here's the answer. This could only break, there are no choices, really. If you know it, it could only break down to 1, 2, 6, 2. That's all. Now, let me tell you why. That's the whole point. There's the double T. You do not say at attention. You say attention. That could be spelled phonetically with just 1 T. It makes 1 T sound. That's 1. The N sound, I think you knew. You probably all got that right. You probably got it right. That's 2, N for 2. That's a trap. That T is not the one. You know why? You don't say attention. It is not a T sound. It's the sh sound, isn't it? Attention. Sh is 6. It's the sound that's important, not the letter. And of course, that's the N for 2. I hope that broke it down for you. I'm going to take one more word, and then we're going to go into actual applications. Okay, the word chandelier. If you want to stop tape and do it yourself or do it in your mind while you're watching, fine. But let's see if you come up with the same number I do. There is only one correct answer. The sh sound is 6. The n sound is 2. The d sound is 1. The ul sound is 5. The sound is 4. 62154 is the only number that the word chandelier can transpose to. Now, you recall, I'm sure, that a little while ago I asked you to look at a phrase. And I also asked you to look at a long digit number. I have a question. Do you remember that number? If this is like my live seminars, I get silly laughs now, laughs that make it look like I'm silly to say, are you crazy? How can I possibly remember that number? Okay, how about the phrase? Do you remember the phrase? Again, going by past precedent, most people do, because you were able to visualize a naked blonde jumps up and down. See, that's easy. The women saw a male blonde jumping up and down, and the men saw a female blonde jumping up and down. So a naked blonde jumps up and down is not difficult to remember. It's that number that's the problem, isn't it? Well, let me show you something. Here is what I asked you to look at before. A beautiful naked blonde jumps up and down. You told me you basically did know that or remembered that. It's this number that was a problem. Well, you know, I'll use it on the same sheet. Let me show you something. If you know my phonetic alphabet, what is the first consonant sound in this sentence? A beautiful naked blonde jumps up and down. Well, the A is a vowel. I told you, vowels you pay no attention to. So the first consonant sound is that B. That's 9, right? You know that B is 9. Let's go to the next consonant sound. That's T. Well, T is 1 in my phonetic alphabet, and that is the next digit, isn't it? Let's go to the next consonant sound. That's F in beautiful. Well, the F is 8. There's your 8. And the L at the end of that word is a 5. So the word beautiful can only break down to 9185. Let's go to the next word. Naked. N is 2. K is 7. D is 1. The next word, blonde, B-O-N-D. There are 4 consonant sounds in that word. Therefore, it'll transpose to 4 digits. The B is a 9. There's your 9. The L is 5. The N could only transpose to a 2, and D to D is 1. Let's do the next word, jumps. Look, the J sound is 6. You know that. The is 3. You also know that. The P is 9, and S sound is always 0, the hissing sound. Now, let's go to the last phrase, up and down. The word up has only the P sound in it. P is 9. Now, and, D, 2, 1. Down is just the reverse of that. D, D sound is 1, and the sound is 2. Don't you see? Because you remembered a beautiful naked blonde jumps up and down, you said you didn't know the number, but you did. If you know my phonetic alphabet, just knowing a beautiful naked blonde jumps up and down, you knew this, I don't know, 25-digit number, whatever it is. Don't you see? I have taken numbers and made them tangible in your mind. That is the whole point. I cannot visualize, for example, the number 147. I can't visualize that. Numbers are concepts. I told you that before. What does a 6 mean to me except that it's 1 higher than 5 and 1 lower than 7? And I told you before that anything you can visualize is easy to remember. Well, I am teaching you how to visualize numbers. I cannot visualize 147, but I can visualize, for example, a truck. Because in my phonetic alphabet, the word truck could only represent 147. Again, there are no decisions to make. The T is 1, the is 4, and the K sound, CK, makes 1 sound. Incidentally, I don't care. There are 2 letters there. It's 2 sounds. I'm sorry, it's 1 sound, 2 letters, but 1 sound is K, 7. I can picture a truck. I can picture a trick. I can picture a drake. Any one of those can be visualized, and any one of those breaks down to 147. To me, visualizing a truck, a trick, or a drake is exactly the same as visualizing 147 because that's all they can break down to. It's that simple. I cannot visualize 63 in my mind, but I can visualize myself being ashamed of something, shame or shim. 62, I can visualize shun or chin or shin or chain, but I cannot visualize the number 62. That is the entire concept. Let's see how that works. Let's see if we can't remember a long digit number. When I say we, I know I can. I want to see if you can. Okay, I'm going to make up a number for you. Now, I'm going to break them into groups of 3. But I don't want you to fall into any traps. This is strictly for teaching purposes, okay? Ordinarily, you don't break them into any specific groups. It isn't necessary. Okay, here's the number I'm going to ask you to remember. And we'll do it together. Look, let's take the first group of 3. Listen to the sounds, because I've already memorized it and I've already made up the words, so I'll give you the sounds I made up. T, b, ul. Does a word come to mind? T, b, ul. Of course, table. Sure, why not? Let's use table. You can visualize a table. You cannot visualize 195. Forgive me for being repetitive, but this warrants repetition. Thinking table is the same as thinking 195. Okay, let's go to the next one, 471. Listen. K, t. K, t. I'm trying to verbalize them so you can really hear them. What comes to word? Rocket, racket. Either one of those is good. I thought of rocket. Now, do you see why? 4, K, 7, T, 1. Okay? Let's go to the next one, 952. But you know something? Before we go to that, a question should be running through your mind. This is a sequential concept. If this were a telephone number, which it's not, it's too many digits, but if it was, if you left out one digit or if you got it out of sequence, you'd get the wrong number. Therefore, it's sequential. How can I do this? How can I remember it sequentially? Well, I taught you that before. You use the link system. Look, table to rocket. Make a silly picture, just the way I taught you. That's all. See yourself eating on a gigantic rocket instead of a table. See a table being launched, taking off like a rocket. See that silly picture in your mind's eye. You're doing exactly what you did before. See that picture. Do it now. Okay, now let's go to 952. Listen to the sounds of the words I used. B, ul, n. It's almost saying the word. Balloon is what I thought of. Now, you could have thought of plane, either the thing that flies or the tool, a plane. Doesn't matter. As long as the sounds are there in the correct order. B for 9, ul for 5. Remember what I told you about double letters. Represents 1 digit. N for 2. Balloon can only represent 952. But you want to remember that, so continue your link. Rocket to balloon. I didn't realize that, but almost the principle of a rocket is taken from a balloon, isn't it? If you blow up a balloon and let the air out, the balloon takes off. Almost the same concept, but that's too logical. Make it silly. You can see a balloon taking off like a rocket. You can see a child holding a real rocket at the end of a string instead of a balloon. You can see yourself blowing up a rocket instead of a balloon, and it takes off in your face. Visualize it any way you like, but make rocket remind you of balloon. If you've done that, let's go to the last one. Listen to the sounds, the last group of 3. T, n, k. I didn't really, I have a point to make later, but for my teaching purposes right now, tank. You know, the army vehicle, military vehicle. T is 1, n is 2, k is 7. If you understand that, make balloon remind you of tank. Again, you can see yourself holding a tank on a string instead of a balloon. You can see a gigantic balloon being used as a tank. You can see yourself blowing up a tank. You can see the top of a tank opening and millions of balloons fly out. Use whatever you like, as long as balloon is a silly picture tied in with tank and one reminds you of the other. All I'm asking you to do is to associate table to rocket, rocket to balloon, balloon to tank. It's a link of 4 items. You did it with 8 before easily. This should be just as easy, if not easier. Okay, if you've done that, get ready to amaze yourself. Because all I'm going to ask you to do is not remember a 12-digit number. No, that's going to scare you. All I want you to do is remember a 4-word link. That's all you have to do. What is the first word in your link? You might want to go backwards to reach it, but if you can think of your first word, say it to yourself, that first word, and now all you have to do is transpose that word to digits. In this case, it'll be 3 digits, because I did that, as I told you, as a teaching device. Okay, the first word that should have come into your mind was table, or is table, and table breaks down to what? Come on, work with me. T is 1, B is 9, ul is 5, of course. Now, think of table. What word does that remind you of? What were you doing with the table? What was the table doing? rocket or racket, sure. Let's transpose rocket into digits, okay? Look, 4, k, 7, t, 1. What does rocket remind you of? What word does rocket remind you of? Sure, a child had a rocket on a string instead of a what? A balloon, of course. So, b is 9, is 5, is 2. Balloon. Finally, balloon brings you to the last word in your link, and that was what? What were you blowing up instead of a balloon? What were you opening and a million balloons flew out? What? A tank, of course. Transpose tank. T is 1, is 2, k is 7. Did you do that with me? Did you work along? Do you realize what you just did? I gave you a 12-digit number once, and you knew it. You want to try something else? I don't want you to see this, and you might want to shut tape off for this. You can do a link backwards. I asked you to do that earlier. Do your link backwards and put the sounds down backwards. You will know that number backwards almost as easily because all there are 4 words. You will know the number backwards just as easily as you know it forwards. Now, I'm not saying that you have to remember a number backwards for any reason, unless you want to show off for your friends. That's okay. I want you to have confidence in this. I don't mind you showing off. I dig ego. There's nothing wrong with that. But you might want to shut the tape off and try it. Now, if you have, that was I had a point I wanted to bring out with that number. I told you before that I didn't really use tank. You see, I broke that number down for you into groups of 3, and I told you that's just a teaching device. Don't lock yourself into cages here. You do not have to break into specific groups. If you come up with a word that takes in more digits, why not? What I originally did, as I wrote this number, I thought of table, rocket, planting. Do you see how quickly I could do that? I saw a table taking off like a rocket, and a rocket was planting. Look, table, you know, 195, rocket 471, planting. Okay, look, planting takes in 6 digits. P, U, N, T, N, G. One of my standards, there are always standards. Whenever I see a 2-7, I try to end with an NG ending, with an ing ending, ING. Because ING, to me, always represents 27. It's got the n sound, the g sound. I know it's not a hard g sound. I don't want to get technical. That's the way I do it. Okay? So the word planting gives me 6 digits, and once you become accustomed to this, those things will be obvious. So when I came up with this number just now, I thought of table, rocket, planting. 3 words, 2 little associations. When there are 3 words, there are 2 associations. Table to rocket is 1, rocket to planting is the 2nd, gave me a 12-digit number. You want to shut off tape and put down your own 12-digit number and try it? That's okay. So if you've done that, fine. If not, let me give you a longer number now. Let's try one. Look. Okay. Now, this time I'm breaking them into groups of 4, again, only for teaching purposes, okay? Okay, what I did is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 16-digit number. The only difference is that they are groups of 4. Listen, if you say the sounds, if you know the sounds, the words will almost come to mind. Listen, p, prowler. Prowler is the word I thought of. One who prowls, you know, somebody who breaks into a house, a burglar kind of person. Prowler. The next thing I looked at was, and I used these digits for a reason, which I'll mention later, or in a moment, ps. Lamps. Lumps would have done it. I thought of lamps. Okay? U for 5, for 3, p for 9. The point I wanted to make is whenever I have a 0 in a number, when I can, I pluralize. That's the S. That's 0. Almost automatic, and you've gotten another digit into a word. That's why I did that, just so I could explain that point. Lamps can only break down to 5390. Now again, let's make a link, because this is a sequential kind of thing. All right, prowler to lamps. You might see a prowler going into the house and putting on all the lamps, which is silly. A prowler would never do that. He doesn't want to be seen. He likes the dark. You might see a prowler with a lot of lamps, remember, plural, more than one, with a lot of lamps on his head as he sneaks into a house. Visualize whatever you visualize as a prowler. That's what I want you to see, with lamps on his head. See that picture, or either picture I suggested or one you thought of yourself. You're forming a link, that's all. See that picture. Blotter. I thought of blotter. You may have thought of bleeder, one who bleeds. Bloater, bladder, any one of those. Plater, any one of those. Any word that has those sounds in that order would serve the purpose. So you do have choices here as long as they fall into the pattern. That's all this is a pattern. In this case, I use blotter. Associate lamps to blotter. Remember, you're making a link. You might see yourself blotting a bunch of ink with, a lot of ink with lamps. The lamps are being used instead of a blotter. You might see a gigantic blotter at your bedside table and you're pulling the string and the blotter lights up. But make it more than one lamp. Lamps. Use whatever picture you want as long as lamps reminds you of blotter. Finally, listen to the sounds. Skirt, skirt, skirt. Skirt. Must could only represent 0741. S for 0, K for 7, for 4, T for 1. You might have thought of scared or squirt. I didn't even mention the Q and X earlier because they're very rarely used. You will very rarely use those. But I don't know of any exceptions to the rule that Q always makes the K sound, as in quit or quiet, so it's 7. The X, you transpose it according to how it sounded. In the word xylophone, it's a Z sound, it would be 0. In anxious, it would be the K sound. Actually, it would be more than one sound. Anxious, I'm going off on a little tangent, but I want you to understand that. Written phonetically might be like this. That X makes that sound, K, sh, so actually it's 76. In the word axe, the tool, an axe with which you chop down a tree, it's the X sound. So what would you use it there for? You got 2, 7, 0. In other words, the X gets a little tricky. You never have to use it. Basically, it's the sound that it actually makes or the sounds that it actually makes. You don't really need to worry about that. I only thought of it because I thought of squirt here, and the Q would give you the 7 sound. So don't worry about that. Forget it. It's the only time I ever tell anyone to forget anything. Okay? Skirt. Breaks down to that. Make sure blotter reminds you of skirt. You might see a girl using her skirt as a blotter to blot up ink. Okay? You might see a gigantic skirt using a blotter, just a skirt, no girl in it, you know, just to make it silly. See that picture. If you have, all I've asked you to do is to make a link of 4 things again. Prowler to lamps, lamps to blotter, blotter to skirt. 4 items, 3 simple associations. If you've done that, work along with me. Think of the first word. Prowler, prowler. Break it down with me. P is 9, is 4, is 5, is 4. That's prowler. Prowler made you think of what? It led you to lamps. Lamps. 5, 3, P is what? 9, of course, and S for the plural is 0. Lamps now reminds you of the next word. Think about it. What was happening? What were you doing with lamps? They were acting as a blotter. Sure. B-l-t-r. Blotter. 9514. And the blotter was being used as a, or something else was being used as a blotter. What was being used as a blotter? What? Skirt, of course. And skirt could only break down to those 4 digits. If you knew those words, you knew this 16-digit number. You could do it with a 20-digit number. You could with a 50-digit number. You know, some of our intelligence tests tell us that a normal adult, normal in quotes, whatever that means, can hear a 6-digit number for a short time and be able to say it forward or backward, forward and or backward. A superior adult, superior, can do that same thing with an 8-digit number. A genius can do it with a 12-digit number. You just did it with a 16-digit number. There is no word for you. I don't know what to call you. You should be quite amazed with yourself. And if you want to stop the tape and try some other numbers on your own, sure, go ahead and do it. I'll wait. Now, you don't ordinarily have to remember long digit numbers unless you want to remember your credit card numbers. That's okay. Some of my students have told me that's been a great help when they lose their credit cards, and if they remember their numbers, you can do that. Just make up a substitute word for the name of the company first and start your link with that and then associate the number. Do you see what I mean? Okay. So you can do that, of course. You want to remember your social security number? Of course, your license number, any long digit numbers. But in this number-oriented society of ours, that's not usually the problem. The problem is remembering telephone numbers, style numbers, things of that kind. So let me touch on that for just a moment. Telephone numbers are exactly the same as this. You want to remember area codes? Oh, I don't want to use any standards, but let's see. Manhattan is 212. Interesting word for that. You could think of nothing. That TH is another thing I didn't mention before. TH can represent one. It's got the T in there. Means nothing else in my phonetic alphabet. You can have it use it to represent one. So you can think of nothing, apostrophe at the end. But there's a better word here. I never said to you that your words must begin with a consonant. Remember, I keep telling you, don't put yourself at the cages. Don't lock yourself in here. As I said before, you can soar with this idea. Use it any way you like. What I use to remember the area code for Manhattan is Indian. Does not have to start with a N sound. N, D, N are the only three digits in that word, and the only three consonants in that word, and they can only represent 212, and it's easy enough to know that that's the association is obvious, Indian to Manhattan, because we bought Manhattan from the Indians, didn't we? So that's kind of easy. Okay? If you want to associate no time to California, or rather Los Angeles, then you've got 213, the area code for Los Angeles. I leave that to you. The rest of the number usually would be 7 digits. In other words, oh well, here's the number. Let's say 947-9950. Well, let's say that was Mr. Cohen's telephone number. Let's forget area code for a moment. That's Mr. Cohen's telephone number. How in the world could I remember that? Well, I can visualize Cohen because I picture an ice cream cone. Brick would give me 947, wouldn't it? Look, B-R-K. And pebbles or pupils. Just visualize an S there. Now I can get it in. Okay, for the plural, right? I looked at 995, I thought pebble, why not just pluralize? For pebbles. Okay, so Mr. Cone, that's ice cream cone, okay? So you can see a gigantic brick sucking an ice cream cone which is full of pebbles, and you got all the information you need. Ice cream cone tells you it's Mr. Cone's telephone number, just knowing the number doesn't do you any good. Brick tells you 947, pebbles tells you 9950. So that's the way you would apply these ideas to remember telephone numbers. It is, again, quite that simple. The reason I came up with this years ago there were booths, telephone booths, there still are, on every street corner in a big city, and there were directories, telephone directories there. They stopped that because they keep disappearing. But, you know, they usually were outside the booth. And what would happen is, if you wanted to call somebody, you would look up a number, and then you've got it, and as you go back to the booth, somebody else just walked in, you see. So now you're waiting, and by the time that person walks out, say, oh gosh, I forgot the number, you gotta go back to the directory, see. Now you look up that number, and somebody else stepped in, or you get a busy signal, so you have to go back and look up the number. It was perpetual motion, that can go on forever. This way, apply this idea. If you looked up somebody's number, and it was 947-9950, and you thought brick pebbles, you got it. Take my word for it. All you have to do is try it to see that I'm right. If you want to remember prices, toaster, price of a toaster. Let's say you're comparison shopping, okay? And the price of a toaster is, I'm trying to think of a typical price, would be $34.95, let's say, okay? All you have to do is make up a word for that and associate it to toaster. I thought of marble. Marble. Okay? Visualize a bunch of marbles flying out of a toaster, popping up. All right? That's all you have to do. How about trying to think of a chair? All right, let's take one more. $147.10. Visualize yourself shooting at chairs instead of targets. Targets. See that picture, you will know those prices. If you did the link earlier from book all the way down to scissors, break that down to sounds as I just taught you, you've got a 25 or 35 digit number starting with 97. Try it on your own. I want to tell you something in a very short time, but it's very important. The only way to read effectively is to be able to read your material once. I don't care how fast or slow or indifferent you read, you see. Most of the information that we ingest, most of the knowledge that we acquire during a lifetime is done through reading. Keep this in mind. How fast you get through material is immaterial. What's material is how much of that material gets through to you. And the way to do it, you have the things you need. You have the 3 basic memory systems that I've taught you. You have the link so that you can remember your reading material as you do it. Fact for salient fact. Make a link. You can do that now. You pick out the facts that you think are important. If you come across a name, make up a substitute word. If you come across any word that's foreign to you, make up a substitute word. I've taught you that. If a name already has meaning, like carpenter or forest or wood or green, there it is. You've got a picture of it right away, so stick it into your link. And if you see a number, any important number when you're trying to remember a sales report, for example, make up a word that tells you that number as I've just taught you. So I want you to be aware of the fact that now you can read more effectively. That's the important thing. Keep that in mind. I hope I've locked in some of these ideas for you. Try them all. That's the only way you'll find out that they really work. If they don't work, you haven't lost anything. As I told you before, you've been forgetting things all your life anyway. It's been interesting spending this time with you. I hope you find it interesting, and I hope you found it interesting. And if you ever see me walking in the street, don't ask me if I remember your name.